Hi grade 12s and welcome. In this video we're going to solve the Mathematics Paper 1 September 2023, which is KwaZulu-Natal province. Right, this is your trial examination, consists of 3 hours. So let's get straight into question 1. Right, so let us solve question 1. In question 1 we want to solve for x, right, and it's for 2 marks. In order to solve for x, this is already factored out, right, so we can just write down the answers. X is equal to 0, right, or x is equal to 4. Simple. Next question, question number 2. Now remember, they said must write your answers to 2 decimal places, which basically means that you need to use the quadratic formula, right? So if you use the quadratic formula, which we know as x equals, before you use the quadratic formula, make sure your equation is in standard form. I hope you understood question 1. Right, so x is equal to 0 or x is equal to 4. Remember, you're going to say x minus 4 is equal to 0, so take the 4 over. So that's how we, or just take the opposite sign. This one here, we say 2x squared plus 3x minus 7 is equal to 0. So we know our a value is 2, our b value is 3, and our c value is negative 7. So let's solve. X is equal to minus b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. Remember, this formula can be found in your formula sheet, all over 2a. So let me just write that down. B squared minus 4ac. So minus b will give me minus. Now when you substitute, just put it in brackets, okay? And the square root of b squared, which is 3 squared minus 4. A is 2 and c is negative 7, right? And divided by 2a, 2 times 2. Now let's solve this using our calculator, right? So I'm going to do the first one with a negative, and the second solution you're going to write or x equals. So the first solution you're going to do it with negative 7, go to mode 1, right? So fraction, we got negative open bracket 3 minus the square root of b squared is 3 squared minus 4, a is 2, c is negative 7, right, divided by 2 times 2, right? You can see how I'm doing it on the calculator. Press equals, you get minus 2,77. Or let's change this into a plus. So if we change that into a plus, then we get 1,27 or 1,27. I hope you understand. Now this, if you have the silver calculator, remember you can write down this and then just go to mode 5 3. Let's go mode 5 and 3, ax squared plus bx plus c, and enter the values 2, abc values 3 and negative 7. C is giving us the same answer, right? 1,27 or minus 2,77. So if you're lazy to type, just use a calculator and get the 2 answers. Let's continue on to the next problem. Next problem is a quadratic inequality. Now what do we do in the quadratic inequality? Usual steps. First, we write the equation in standard form, make sure it's greater than 0, and it's already greater than 0, so we're going to factor it out. So we're going to factorize, open 2 brackets, we write x and we write x. Why we write x and x? Because x times x will be x squared greater than 0. If you don't want to do that, then just use a calculator again. So now in this time we're going to enter 1, minus 5 and 4. Right, so we have x1 which is equal to 4, so we need to bring the 4 over to the other side of the equation, so we will get minus 4, and bring the 1 over, you will get x minus 1. Now I hope you understood that. Now make sure you check the sum and the product. So minus 4 times minus 1 is plus 4, minus 4 minus 1 is minus 5, so it's correct. And you write down the values, the critical values in order, so it is 1 and 4. Now if you substitute any value after 4, like the number 10, you're going to get positive, right? And in between in between 1 and 4, if you substitute a value like 2, you can see 2 minus 4 is negative and positive, so that's going to give me negative and then positive here. If you have linear factors, why we say linear factors is in the form mx plus c, then you can always alternate the sign provided you have one of them. Now we want to solve positive, right? So greater than 0, make sure it's not including, and we want to solve this side. So your solution lies less than 1, x is less than 1, or x is greater than 4. I hope you guys are understanding. Right, perfect. Let's move on to the next question. Next question is nice as well, because this is an exponential equation, but not just any type of exponential equation. So let me explain this to you. We have to, what happens when we have exponential equation? We have to factorize, or we need to identify something. Now as we see here, we can't really factorize because 3 to the power x is not common everywhere, but we have 3 terms, so it's maybe a trinomial. So we can break up the 3 to the power 2x as 3 to the power x times 3 to the power x. Now remember, multiplying exponents with same bases, you add the powers. X plus x is 2x, so it's correct, right? And then minus 10 times 3 to the power x remains as is, plus 21 is equal to 0. Now you can say let k be equal to 3 to the power x. So you got k times k, which is k squared, minus 10k plus 21 is equal to 0. Now if you factor this out, you're going to get k minus, I don't know whether it's minus or plus, let's check. Right, so now we know 21 is 7 times 3, so only 7 and 3 will work, minus 7 and minus 3. So we're going to say 3 to the power x, which is k equals 3, or 3 to the power x, which is equal to 7. Now interesting, because 3 to the power x equals 3, that's possible because that's 3 to the power 1. So we can drop the bases, therefore x is equal to 1. And what's the answer for x here? We have to apply logs. So we say x equals log 7 base 3, because 7 can't be written in terms of base 3 as a rational exponent. So that's the reason why we write log 7 base 3. So x is now equal to, let's try log 7 base 3, mod 1 base 3, right, and log 7. So we are getting 1,77. Right, nice question. Moving on to the next problem, which is solve simultaneously. Now easy peasy. Most of the time simultaneous equations are simple, right, where you have one linear and one quadratic, right? You have one linear equation and one quadratic equation, right? So we can either solve for x or y, your choice, right? So let me see what I should solve for. Let's solve for y, so we can solve for x there. So y is equal to 2 minus x. Now we're going to substitute this value of y inside the second equation. We're using method of substitution, that's the only thing you can use. So you have x squared plus 2 minus x all squared plus 6x. Let's bring the 4y over. So minus 4y, what is y? 2 minus x, right? And bring the minus 4 over to the other side, plus 4 is equal to 0. So remember, I brought this over. So if you bring this over, you get minus 4y. If you bring that over, you get plus 4. Right, so that's what I have. And y is 2 minus x. Now let's solve. We got x squared plus, if you open this up, squaring a binomial, square the 2, you get 4. Product of these two terms, which is 2 minus x, is minus 2x times 2. So minus 4x. And then square the negative x, you get plus x squared. The balance of the terms is just simplifying, right? So remember, this is the one that was squaring a binomial. Minus 8 plus 4x plus 4 is equal to 0. I hope you guys are understanding. Right, so now we take like terms, we can see like terms are x squared and x squared, so we have 2x squared, right? And what are the other like terms? The other like terms are, let's see, we have minus 4x plus 4x, so we know that cancels out, so we just left with 6x, right? Plus 6x. Now we got plus 4 which is plus 8 and minus 8. 4 minus 8 is minus 4, minus 4 plus 4 is 0, so everything cancels out, we're getting equal to 0. You can take out 2x as a common factor, we're left with x plus 3, because 6x divided by 2x is 3. 6 divided by 2 is 3x, and x cancels out. 2x squared divided by 2x is x equals 0. So x is equal to 0 or x is equal to negative 3. Now if x is 0, substitute inside here, so then y will be equal to 2. And if x is negative 3, you're going to say 2 minus minus 3, which is y is equal to 5. 2 minus minus 3 becomes 2 plus 3. So what's your answer? Your answer is 0, 2, or your answer is minus 3 and 5. You don't have to write it in this coordinate form, but it's fine, right, if you write it. So I hope you guys are understanding. Moving on to the next question. So this is the ordered pair that solves this solution. Next question, nice question, because they said the roots of the quadratic equation are. Now nature of roots, this topic is on nature of roots, right? So all this is question 1, the whole thing was grade 11 syllabus, besides this one here, because that's applying logs. But you can simplify that. You can say 3 to the power 1,77 is approximately 3. So you can use trial and error to solve that as well. Right, let's look at that. The roots of the equation are, for which values of n will the roots be equal? When do you get equal roots? When do you get equal roots? When delta is equal to 0. Delta equals 0, you get equal roots. Okay, delta positive, you get delta is greater than 0, then you get real roots, real and unequal roots. And if delta is less than 0, you get non-real roots. So delta equals 0, which is 25 minus n squared. 25 minus n squared is equal to 0, right? And then n squared is equal to 25. Remember, I'm going to take the 25 over and multiply by negative. So n is equal to plus or minus the square root of 25. Therefore, n is equal to plus or minus 5. So you get two answers. It's either positive 5 or negative 5. Right, so we can leave the answer. Moving on to question 2. Right, so it's on sequence and series. Right, let's solve both problems. Now they're telling us the type of series is an arithmetic series. Determine the 20th term of the sequence. Now let's see what's in this arithmetic sequence. Right, we have the value of a, which is 3, and the common difference is 7 minus 3. You can see you are adding 4 every time, so the difference is 4. Right, if you're subtracting 4 every time, then the difference will be negative. So 7 minus 3 is 4. So that's correct. Now we want to find the value of the 20th term. Determine the 20th term in the sequence. So we're going to say T20 is equal to a plus 19d. Because remember, what's your formula? Tn is equal to a plus n minus 1d. Now n is already 20. 20 minus 1 is 19. 19d. So a is 3 plus 19 times 4. Right, so what's 3 plus 19 times 4? 3 plus 19 times 4, I've got 79. So term 20 is 79. Now how many terms are in this sequence? Obviously we need to find the Tn formula. So Tn is equal to a plus n minus 1d, and we need to equate it to the last term, so we know how many terms are in the sequence, which is 399. So a is 3 plus n minus 1, d is 4, is equal to 399. Now we're going to take 399 we don't have to open up this whole thing. All right, we're going to take 399 minus the 3, so we get 396. That's n minus 1 times 4. Now we can divide both sides by 4, so we get n minus 1 is equal to what's 396 divided by 4? I'm getting 99. Alright, so we're gonna say n is equal to 100. Add the 1 across, so 100 terms. So how many terms are in the sequence? There are basically 100 terms in the sequence. I hope you guys are understanding. Moving on to the next problem. Let's see what they're saying here. The first term of an arithmetic sequence is a, and the 13th term is a plus 24. Alright, now the first, determine the common difference of the sequence. What's the common difference? So first term 1 is equal to a, and what's 13th term? 13th term is 13 is equal to a plus 12d. As I said before, if you want the 10th term, a plus 9d. Always take n minus 1. And now this here, 13th term is already equal to a plus 24. So what we can do now is we can cancel out the a's, and then we left with 24 on the other side, and we got 12. Alright, so d is equal to, dividing by 12 on both sides, we get d is equal to 2. So what's the common difference? D is equal to 2. Common difference is 2. I hope you guys are understanding. Moving on to the next problem. Hence, what they're saying next? Hence, determine the sum of the first 200 terms in terms of a. So what's Sn? Sn is equal to n over 2 into 2a plus n minus 1d. Right, sum of an arithmetic sequence. So Sn, the sum of the first 200 terms. So we need to say S200 is equal to 200 over 2 into 2a plus, what's n minus 1? That's n, so 199d. What is d? d is times 2. Right, so we got 200 divided by 2, which is 100 times 2a plus, what's 199 times 2? 199 times 2, I've got 398. Right, now 100 times 2 is 200a plus 39,800, right? 398 times 100, 39,800. So that's the sum of the first 200 terms in terms of a. Right, so that's my answer, S200. I hope you guys are understanding. Moving on to the next question, which is question 3. The values below are the consecutive terms of a quadratic sequence. So we have a quadratic sequence, right? So let's see how we can solve this. Alright, so question 1 is pretty simple, because see what they said, the values of below are the consecutive terms of a quadratic sequence. The fourth term is 49. Right, there's no reason to tell us that. We can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Alright, so what are we doing from 49 to 77, 77 to 111, 111 to 151? So we take the difference because we want the third term. So we need to find a pattern. So 77 minus 49, we adding 28 here, right? We added 28. 111 minus 77, we added 34. We added 34, right? So what's the difference between 28 and 34? It is 6, right? So from here to there, we need to basically, if you're going forward, we're supposed to be adding 22. So what is 49 minus 22? So you need to take 49 minus 22. So we're getting 27. So we're going to write term 3 is equal to 27. Right, so I hope you guys are understanding. So the third term is 27. Determine the general term Tn of the quadratic sequence. Now we need to go back now, right? So we got 1, 2, 3, right? And we got the fourth term, which is 49. This is 27. Now if we need to go one more back, so we need to subtract what you call minus 6, so that's going to be subtracting 16 to go back. So 27 minus 16, because 22 minus 6, right, is 16. Yeah, so what we're getting is 11. And if you go back, remember minus 16, now you're going to go back. Now this was 11, so minus 10, so you're going to start with 1. Right, so 11 minus 10. So you can see now you're adding 10, then you're adding 16, then you are adding 22. So let's check if this works out. Difference 1, right? And then there's difference 2. So we're solving this question here, 3.2. Now to solve this, what's difference 1? 11 minus 1, which is 10. 27 minus 11, which is 16. 49 minus 27 is 22. Right? So far so good. 16 minus 10 is 6. 22 minus 16 is 6. Now what are the formulas we use to solve this? We use three formulas, which is 2a is equal to d2. So let me write it here. 1. Alright, so these are the formulas that we use. So we say 2a is equal to d2. So d2 is that first value, and the first value. We only take those one. The second formula is 3a plus b is equal to difference 1, and then the last one is a plus b plus c is equal to term 1. Now 2a is equal to difference 2. What is d2? 6. So a is now equal to 3. 6 divided by 2, which is 3. And now 3 times 3 is 9. 9 plus b is equal to difference 1. What is difference 1? 10. So b is equal to 10 minus 9, which is 1. Now a plus b is going to give me 4, plus c is now equal to term 1, which is 1. Therefore c is now equal to 1 minus 4, which is negative 3. So my Tn is equal to an squared, which is 3n squared, plus bn, so plus 1n, plus c, which is negative 3. So I hope you guys are understanding. So is that correct what we did here? 3n squared plus n minus 3. Now let's check if my answer is correct. Let me substitute 5 inside and let's see if we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's see if we get 77 if we substitute 5 here. So we're going to say 3 times 5 squared plus 5 minus 3. I'm checking if yes, so I've got 77, which kind of correlates with what we have in the quadratic sequence. Moving on to the next problem. Between which two consecutive terms of the quadratic sequence is the first difference 418? Between which two terms is the first difference 418? Now let's look at the first difference formula, right? The first difference formula, so remember difference 1 pattern is 10, 16, 22 and so on, right? That's the difference 1 pattern. Now if that's the difference 1 pattern, because that's what they said, between which two consecutive terms of the quadratic sequence is the first difference 418. So if we're looking at this pattern, I know between the third and the second term the first difference is 16. So third and second term the first difference is 16. Fourth and third term the first difference is 22. So similarly we want to know when is the difference equal to 418. So simple, I simplified the formula for you now, right? So what we're going to do here is we're going to find Tn. We can say this is arithmetic sequence now. Always in a quadratic sequence the first difference is always arithmetic and the second difference is always a constant. So we're going to use the arithmetic formula, which is a plus n minus 1d, and equate it to 418. What's a? 10. plus n minus 1 times d. What's the common difference between this? 6, which is equal to 418. Now 418 minus 10 is going to give me 408, right? And 408 divided by 6, 408 divided by 6 is going to give me 68. So that's n minus 1. You can see I'm not opening up everything because I don't need to, right? So therefore n is equal to 69. So between the, therefore, remember we need to know between which two consecutive terms of the quadratic sequence is the first difference equal to 418. So between the 70th and 69th terms of the quadratic sequence, right? So in other words, you can write it like this: T70 minus T69 is equal to 418, right? So we can check this answer. Let's substitute 70 and then substitute 69 and see if you get 418. So 3 times 70 squared plus 70 minus 3. Right, so I've got an answer of 14,767. 14,767, right? And if I say 3 times 69 squared plus 69 minus 3, I'm getting an answer of 14,349, right? And if I subtract both, right, so remember this is stored in answer, so 14,767 minus the answer in the previous sum that I did, this was stored in the answer. So you see we got 418, right? So that's how I know my answer is correct, right? So I hope you guys are understanding. So far so good, no difficult questions as yet, right? Moving on to the next problem. Remember they're telling us that this sequence is geometric. Remember in a geometric, what's your geometric formula? Remember we have a common ratio which is term 2 divided by term 1, or you can say term 3 divided by term 2, or in general Tn divided by Tn minus 1, right? In other words, term 100 divided by term 99, you still get the common ratio in a geometric sequence. Now the first two terms of a geometric sequence are x and x plus 1. So write down the common ratio. So the common ratio is x plus 1 over x, right? Write down the third term. Remember Tn formula is a r to the power n minus 1. I like to write r in brackets because sometimes you mix up the ar, you think that's the product. No, it's not. So I want to find the third term. So T3 is equal to a, right? Write down the third term, a r squared, right? What's a? Why r squared? Because n minus 1, right? So write down the third term. A, what is a? X. The first term is x. What's r? X plus 1 over x. And we're going to square that, so we're going to simplify this now. X times x plus 1 all squared over x, which is over x squared, because we're squaring this numerator and squaring the denominator. Now x and x cancels out, so you're just going to have x plus 1 all squared over x. I hope you guys are understanding. Moving on to the next problem. What's the next problem? The next one is if x equals 2. If x equals 2, will the series converge? If the value of x is 2, will the series converge? Let's check. Let's see what's happening. So the first term is x, the second term is x plus 1, and the third term is, we just worked that out, x plus 1 all squared over x. Now if x is equal to 2, you're going to have 2, you're going to have 3, if x is 2, 2 plus 3 is was 2 plus 1, 3, 3 squared is 9, 9 over 2, right? We can see the numbers are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? So the terms are getting bigger. It was 2, then 3, then 4.5, and then so on. So we can clearly see that the series diverges. But how do you explain this? We use common ratio. So what was common ratio? The common ratio is x plus 1 over x, x plus 1 over x, which is 3 over 2. It is clearly greater than 1, right? Since the common ratio is greater than 1, the series diverges. The sequence, well, the sequence, you can't say series because series means the sum of this. The sequence, the geometric sequence diverges, right? Because it's greater than 1. So when does it converge? It converges, remember there's a number line, right? So if it's less than -1, it diverges. If your common ratio, remember this is common ratio, and if it's greater than 1, it will diverge, and if it's in between -1 and 1, then it will converge, right? So I hope you guys are understanding. Right, let's move on to the next question. This should be a nice level 4 question, right? Because they usually have that, you know, in quadratic sequence or something. Let's see what type of sequence is this. The given sequence below has 4 terms only, such that the first 3 terms, t1, t2, t3, forms an arithmetic sequence. So what's the property of an arithmetic sequence? The property of an arithmetic sequence is common difference, so we can write down the formula, right? So the first 3 terms forms an arithmetic sequence, so we can say b minus a is equal to a minus 6, right? b minus a is equal to a minus 6, because term 3 minus term 2, there's it here, right, is equal to term 2 minus term 1, and that's the property of a common difference, right? So we can simplify this. We can say b is equal to 2a minus 6. So I have equation 1. Remember there's 2 unknowns, so you need 2 equations. Next one, and the last 3 terms forms a geometric sequence. What's the property of a geometric sequence? Common ratio. So term 3 divided by term 2 is equal to term 2 divided by term 1. What's term 3? Term 3 is 16 divided by b is equal to b divided by a. Alright, so now if you cross multiply, you're getting b squared is equal to 16a. Okay, now we already know what b is. B is 2a minus 6. So you're going to say 2a minus 6 all squared is equal to 16a. Now squared is binomial, that's 4a squared. 4a squared, product of these two times 2, so minus 12a minus 24a plus 36, squaring the negative 6 is equal to 16a. Now if you simplify this entire equation, you're getting 4a squared minus 24a minus 16a is minus 40a plus 36 is equal to 0. Now simplify this equation further by writing in standard form by dividing it by 4. So you're getting a squared minus 10a plus 9 is equal to 0. A squared minus 10a plus 9 is equal to 0. So we can use the factors. We can factorize this. So that's a minus 1 into a minus 9 is equal to 0. A minus 1 into a minus 9 is equal to 0. Or you can use a calculator, right? So you can go mode 5 3, enter the values 1 minus 10 and positive 9. You can see you're getting 9, so bring the 9 over a minus 9 and 1. So a is equal to 1 or a is equal to 9. Now if a is 1, what is b? So that's 2 minus 6. b is minus 4, or b is equal to 2 times 9 is 18 minus 6 is 12. So these are the two answers that will work. Right, so a is equal to 1 or 9 and b is equal to -4. And so what's the solution? A comma b is equal to 1 and -4 or 9 and 12. So that's your coordinates of a and b. Not coordinates as in that's a set that actually works, 1 and -4 or 9 and 12. 9 and 12. Right, so let's move on to the next question. Next question wasn't really difficult. You just needed to know the properties of arithmetic sequence and geometric sequence. Moving on to the next question. Right, so what we have here is functions. Right, so question 5, write down the equations of the asymptotes of G. Right, so what's an asymptote? You get a horizontal asymptote, right, so and a vertical asymptote. So you know this is an equation of a hyperbola. So y is equal to a over x minus p plus q. Remember, the value of p is the vertical asymptote and the value of q is the horizontal asymptote. Or set the denominator equal to 0, right? So you get the vertical asymptote. Horizontal asymptote is just ignoring this part and taking the value of q. In this case, we can rewrite g of x as, let's simplify g of x. So I'm going to take out a negative from the denominator, so I will get 3 over x minus 3 minus 1. I only took out a negative in the denominator. I switched the signs, so negative and negative cancels out, so it becomes x minus 3. Right, so what happens now? We know the x is equal to 3 is the vertical asymptote, right? And y is equal to -1 is the horizontal asymptote. Okay, so I hope you guys are understanding. Now remember, this graph is also in which quadrants? This graph is in the first and third quadrant because your value of a is positive. Don't look at this one because we need it in standard form. This is the standard form. The value of a is positive. Your graph is in the first and third quadrant. And what makes the quadrant is the asymptotes that makes the quadrants. Now let's find the x and y intercept. Obviously we need all this information to sketch the graph, right? Let's find the x and y intercept of this function. Remember, the function that I'm using is this one that I simplified just now, the g of x. So how are you going to find the x and y intercept? To find the x intercept, right, you're going to make y 0. In other words, make this entire equation equal to 0. So 3 over x minus 3 minus 1 is equal to 0. Now to solve this equation, always take the 1 over and cross multiply. So 3 over x minus 3 is equal to 1 over 1, and then now cross multiply. Right, so if you cross multiply, you will get x minus 3 times 1, which is x minus 3, and 1 times 3, which is 3. So x-intercept is 6. In other words, you write it in coordinate form, 6, 0. And y-intercept is very simple, right, because you are just making x equal to 0 here. If you make x equal to 0, you're going to get 3 over -3, right, minus 1. So minus 1 is minus 2. So what's the coordinates of the y-intercept? 0 and -2. I hope you guys are understanding. I think probably we need to sketch the graph because there was so much of work. Maybe we need to sketch the graph. Draw a graph, right? Right, so let's draw the graph with the intercepts and axes, right? So very simple to draw the graph. When you're drawing the graph, always put your asymptotes first, right? So we're going to draw our axes, x-axis and y-axis. That's the y-axis, and this is my x-axis. Let me just see what values we need. We need 6 and we need -2 for y-intercept, and -1 and 3 for the horizontal asymptote. Okay, right, so we have the x-axis, we have the y-axis. I'm drawing the horizontal asymptote, which is -1. Right, so I'm going to draw the asymptote. Make sure your asymptote is in broken lines. Okay, so let me just draw the asymptote. I'm going to break up this line now, right? So please, right, so I've got the horizontal asymptote, right? So I'm going to label this. This is y equals -1, and that's 0. And the vertical asymptote was x equals 3, right? If you go up, x is equal to 3 is the vertical asymptote. So let me just use some coordinates here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 is my x-intercept as well. I think I'm going to use let's use smaller spaces for x, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, right? Now my vertical asymptote was at 3, right? So we're talking about the vertical asymptote which occurs at 3, right? So I'm going to break up this line as well. Right, so I've got my horizontal and vertical asymptote labeled as this is x is equal to 3. Right, now these are your quadrants. See, first quadrant, second quadrant, third quadrant, and fourth quadrant. We know our graph is going to go in the first and third quadrant. So in the first quadrant, my graph is like this. Right, is going through 6. Right. Right, so that's my graph in the first quadrant. Well, I don't have a y-intercept in the first quadrant, right? And in the third quadrant, my y-intercept is negative 2. Remember 6, 0, 6 was your x-intercept. And in the third quadrant, my y-intercept is negative 2. So negative 2 here. And the graph is going obviously close to there and close to this asymptote. Right, so you got your graph of G. Right, so I hope you guys understood that. Please draw it in pencil. Right, don't draw it in highlights. Next one. Determine the equation of the axis of symmetry. Right? Determine the equation of the axis of symmetry. Now you get two types of axis of symmetry. Now, what's the axis of symmetry? Let me just give you the formulas for the axis of symmetry from the general equation, which is y equals a plus, right? So, and then decide which axis of symmetry we want. Alright, so I'm going to write it here in the side. Now you get two types of axis of symmetry. One axis of symmetry is the one with a positive gradient. Remember, this is axis of symmetry. Is x minus p plus q. Alright, so you're just adding them up like this. And then cut it in half. And look at this bottom part. We only say y equals negative into x minus p, still plus q. Right, so this is the negative axis of symmetry with gradient negative, and this is a positive axis of symmetry with gradient positive going upwards and downward sloping, positive slope. Now we want to find the axis of symmetry with a negative gradient. Okay, we know the equation of g of x is 3 over x minus 3 minus 1. So what's the negative axis of symmetry? Taking this part and putting a negative in the front. So what's the axis of symmetry here? Y is equal to negative into x minus 3, negative 1. So that's negative x plus 3 minus 1. So that's negative x plus 2. So I hope you guys understood that. Now remember, just a little bit more on the axis of symmetry. If they tell you to sketch this, it's simple to sketch because it's just a line going through what's the equation? Positive 2. Your y-intercept is positive 2 and your x-intercept is 2. So your axis of symmetry goes through this line here. It goes through this. So when you fold along that, so remember, when you fold along this line, all of this graph will touch all of this graph. That's why it's called an axis of symmetry, right? And when you fold along the positive, this half will touch this half and the bottom half will touch the bottom half. So this is the axis of symmetry line, y equals negative x plus 2. Let me draw the positive axis of symmetry graph. Obviously it's not part of this problem, but let's just draw it. Positive axis of symmetry will go something like this. So you can see clearly that this half will touch that half and this bottom half will touch that bottom half. So that's what this here represents. And I think the positive axis of symmetry will just be x minus 3 minus 1. It will be minus 4. Right, so this line actually goes through minus 4 because it's going to be minus 3 minus 1, so x minus 4. So your x and y intercept is going to be what's going to be your x-intercept and your y-intercept. Your y-intercept is minus 4, so it's going to be something like that, right? So that's that. Those are the two axes of symmetry. So this is a positive axis of symmetry, which we don't want, obviously. I'm just teaching you how to sketch it, and to understand what it means. So that's x minus 4. You can see the y-intercept is minus 4 and the x-intercept is 4. Right, so I hope you guys are understanding. Right, moving on to the next question. Question number 6. Right. So we got a parabola and we have a line. We have a parabola and a line. That's what we have. Let's make this smaller. Right, making this small. Right, because I need this graph to explain to you in every step. So that's the reason why I do this. I kind of crop it. Right, so now let's see the graphs of f and g. The graphs of the parabola f, you can see that, and g, which is a straight line, intersects at p and s. So you have points of intersection at p and s as shown below. The point r is negative half 0. Negative half 0 is on the parabola, so that's the x-intercept. Is lying on the floor, there's no height. T, which is 1 and negative 12, is just a point on the parabola, that's it. And Q, which is 0 and 2. 0 and 2 is a point on the straight line, which is the y-intercept. V is the turning point of the parabola. Okay. The straight line makes an angle of 45 degrees with the x-axis. Now very important is, see, to analyze this information. See, we got 45 degrees here. Now remember, angle of inclination is on the outside, starting from the positive and touching the line, right? So that angle is going to be 135 degrees, right? And remember, this is coming from paper 2 theory. Tan theta is equal to the gradient. So I think you're going to get negative 1 as a gradient here. And then you can find the x-intercept. And then you got x-intercepts and a point. And then you can find the equation of the parabola because you got the equation of the straight line. Okay, so we know where we are heading. So that's why we need to analyze this information as well. So let's look at the first question. Show that the equation of g is that, write down the coordinates of s. Right, so nice. We're going to do both problems here in one. Right, so what we have, we need to show that the equation of g is minus x plus 2. Right, so how are we going to show that the equation of g is minus x plus 2? Very simple. As I explained, m gradient is equal to tan theta. Theta is the angle on the outside, so tan 135 degrees, your gradient is equal to negative 1. Right, negative 1. Use a calculator, just say tan 135. Mode 1, tan 135. See, I've got negative 1. Now the gradient is negative 1 and the y-intercept is 2. So what's g of x? Therefore g of x is equal to negative x plus 2. Right, so we showed that the equation of g is negative x plus 2. Write down the coordinates of s. Coordinates of x is x-intercepts. Now x-intercept, if you take this x over, making y 0, so 6.2, making this 0, 0 equals negative x plus 2. Take the x over, you're going to get 2. Therefore s is 2, 0. Right, so this is 2, 0. Now we can find the equation of the parabola because we have x-intercepts and we have a point. We're going to use the point to find the value of a. Right, so quite simple these questions are so far. Right, so show that the equation of f is, let's see how we're going to solve that. Simple, because we got x-intercepts and a point. Now how do we solve x-intercepts and a point? We're going to say y equals a into x minus x1 into x minus x2. Right, y equals a into x minus x1 into x minus x2. Now x1 is equal to negative half and x2 is equal to 2. So let's substitute this inside. So y equals a into x minus half is plus half and x minus 2 at a point which is t 1 and negative 12. Right, so we're going to solve it at 1 and negative 12. Now what's the purpose of substituting another point? To get the value of a. So this is x and y. So y is negative 12. A is, that's what we're solving. 1 plus half is 3 over 2. and 1 minus 2 is negative 1. Right, so what we have, minus 12 equals negative 3 over 2a. Multiply by 2 and then divided by 3. Cancel out the negatives on both sides, right? Cancel out the negatives on both sides. So you multiplied by 2 and divided by 3, or just say 12 divided by 3 over 2. 12 divided by 3 over 2. So I'm getting 8. So the value of a is equal to 8. Right, so now y is equal to, take the value of 8, right, and substitute it back in here and open this up. So let's see, y is equal to 8 into x plus half into x minus 2. So I'm going to take the 8 inside this bracket because I want to get rid of the half. So what I've got, 4x plus 4 into x minus 2. Now let's open up this bracket. 4x times x, did I do this right? Value of, but we got 8 into x squared minus 12x minus 8. How come this is not working out? 4x times x, that's 4x squared, but I'm getting 4x squared. Oh no, this was 8x, sorry. Okay, right, so 8 times x is 8x and 8 times half is 4. Right, so I just took it into the first bracket. Now it'll be easy for me to multiply this out, or alternatively you can multiply this out, but you're going to be dealing with a fraction. So 8x squared, right, 8x times minus 2 is minus 16x plus 4x, minus 2 times 4 is minus 8. So I've got 8x squared minus 16 minus 12x minus 8. Right, so did we get the f of x? Minus 12x minus x. So therefore f of x is equal to, right, so we proved it. Moving on to the next question. Determine the coordinates of the turning point of f. Now remember, so far all these questions were just grade 11 math, so I'm just going to use grade 11 knowledge to solve this question, because how are we going to find the turning point of f? To find the turning point, we're going to get x max, right? How you find the x value of the turning point? How do we find the x value of turning point? We say minus b over 2a. Minus b is minus 12 over 2 times a, which is 8. Right, so I'm going to get 12 over 16. 12 divided by 16, I'm getting 3/4, right? So I've got 3/4 as my x value, and my y value of the turning point is taking 3/4 and substituting here. So 8 into 3/4 squared minus 12 into 3/4 minus 8. So I'm going to do that. 8 into 3 over 4 close and squared minus 12 into 3 over 4, right, and minus 8, minus 25 over 2. So I'm getting minus 25 over 2. Now remember, to find the x value of the turning point, you can also add up the x-intercepts and divide it by 2. So if you take minus half plus 2, which is 1.5, and if you divide 1.5 by 2, you're going to get 0.75, right? So which is basically 3/4. So but remember, to find the y value of the turning point, you have to substitute the 3/4 into the original f of x equation. I hope you guys are understanding. Right, so what's the turning point of v? Therefore v is 3/4 and minus 25 over 2, which is the same thing as 0.75 or minus 12.5. I hope you guys understood that. Right, so far so good, no difficult questions so far. Alright, next one, 6.5. Now I like this question because it needs an explanation. Now why I like this question? Because they're dealing with the roots. Use a graph to determine the values of k if f of x is equal to k has two distinct unequal roots. What is unequal roots? Distinct means different, and unequal roots. So we kind of finding delta greater than 0, but don't use this. Use a graph to solve, right? You can say delta greater than 0 and solve this equation with the k inside, right? And then you can solve the problem. Otherwise, Let's use the graph to solve, because we already have all the important points. So let me explain this to you on the graph. Now, how must I cut the graph, right? This question, to explain this to you, how should I cut this graph, right? So remember, this is one of the methods, but we're not going to do this method because it's too much of work, right? For 1 mark, use the graph, right? They said use the graph, so I'm explaining to you using the graph. Now, how will I cut this graph in such a way that we get unequal roots? So see, I'm cutting the graph below the turning point. So see, this here doesn't even cut the graph at all. But if I cut the graph at the turning point, I don't want that, right? If I cut the graph at the turning point, I'm going to get equal roots. I'm going to get the same x value. Remember, I'm kind of like, when I say cut the graph, I'm moving the x-axis into different positions. Now, if I cut the graph above the turning point, anywhere above the turning point, I will always get 2 unequal roots. See, 1, 2. If I cut it here, same story. I'm always getting 2 unequal roots, and it's distinct because it's different. But if I cut it at the turning point, no, that does not work. So what we look at when you solve these problems, we're only looking at the y values of the turning point and sometimes the sometimes the y-intercept. But in this case, not y-intercept. We're looking at the turning point only. So the turning point y value was negative 25 over 2. So we need to cut it above the turning point. So k is greater than negative 25 over 2. So that's your answer, right? So the answer has to be k is greater than negative 25 over 2. Right, guys, I hope you guys are understanding. Next question. Yo, look at these questions, man. 6.6 got derivatives and all, but it's simple because what does f prime x means? F prime x, right? So what we're looking for here is, when will I get negative? Negative times positive. That basically, what does negative times positive means? Where the derivative, in other words, where there is a decrease. So I'm looking for a decrease on the parabola and an increase on the straight line. Okay, with it. So I'm looking for decrease, increase, or decrease, increase, or I'm looking for increase times a decrease. So let me retake this graph and explain this to you. So right, so we need to look at the parabola, right? But now on the straight line, which is g of x, we can't get an increase on g of x. So there's always a decrease here, so that's not possible. So we're only looking for decrease and increase. So where is the parabola increasing? So the parabola is increasing all the way from here, right, upwards, right? That's the increasing part, right? And decrease and increase must be less than 0, right? And this one is decreasing all here. So from here, right? So all this is decreasing. So what you think the answer will be here now then? So it's decreasing. Okay, so the answer over here will be, after the turning point, 3/4 and minus 25 over 2. So the answer will be, see, from here is decreasing and thus increasing. So the answer over here will be x is greater than 3/4. It can only be x is greater than 3/4, right? Because until this step here, until this stage here, we have decreasing and we have increasing, and after this we still have decreasing and we have increasing, so it's everywhere here. Should we exclude 2? Can we say x is not, but let's see, let's solve it another way. See, the derivative of f prime x, let's find the derivative of f prime x. The derivative of f prime x is 16x minus 12. 16x minus 12. So that is 16x minus 12, right? And the derivative of g prime x, if you differentiate g prime x, what was g prime x? You're just getting negative 1, right, times negative 1. Right, and we're going to say less than 0. Yes, we can take that because it's still decrease and increase, so we don't need to omit any values there. Now let's see. So we got 16x minus 12 is greater than 0 because I'll multiply both sides by negative 1. 16x is greater than 12, so x is greater than 12 over 16, which is 3/4. So both ways correct, right? So you can apply both methods. Otherwise I just look at the graph and solve, right? So I hope you understood that. Moving on to the next question. So I'm going to explain this as well to you. Now let's see. A new graph h is obtained by first reflecting the graph of f about the y-axis. Right, so what happens when you reflect about the y-axis? Very important. If you take a point, coordinate transformation x and y, if you reflect about the y-axis, this point now becomes negative x and y. So the x value becomes negative. And then shifting it upward direction so that the x-axis is a tangent of the new graph f. So if you reflect this graph about the y-axis, remember this was 2, so that's going to go away there, and this half will go there, right? And it's not going to change the turning point, right? And now, and then shifting it in the upward direction. So if you're shifting this graph upward direction so that the x-axis is a tangent to the new graph h. So in other words, you need to shift it by 12.5 upwards. Right, so write down the coordinates of the point T, the image of T which lies on the graph of H. Image of T. Okay, so far, if I reflect, so T is 1 and minus 12. So if I reflect on y-axis, the point T will now become the point T. They should have said T double prime. That was the second, right? So T prime, not this T prime. Yeah. Okay. So after reflection on this point still becomes 1 and minus 12 now becomes negative 1 and negative 12, right? Negative 1 and negative 12. Now we moving this point negative 1. Let's call it T1 here. And negative 1 and negative 12. Now we are taking this point and the graph, remember point V is here, so you're shifting it there, so the x-axis is the tangent, so you're shifting it by 12.5 upwards because that's the minimum value, right? So the value at this point was minus 12.5, right? So you're going to add 12.5 here, so T1 will now become, so 12.5 up, translate, so it's still going to be negative 1 and a half because you're adding 12.5 to minus 12, so negative 1 and half. I hope you guys understood that, right? So another nice question here on transformation. Moving on to the next question, which is question number 7. Let's solve question 7. Alright, so it's based on functions and inverses. So the diagram shows log graph. which is the inverse. Right, so let's analyze this function first and then answer the questions that follows. The diagram shows the graphs of f, which is log x base a. F is a log graph, right? And inverse, f inverse, which is point A, minus 1 and 4. F inverse is here. So the inverse of log is the exponential graph, right? So f inverse is the exponential graph. F is a log graph. I can see the graph of f is going close to the y-axis. So y-axis is a vertical asymptote. Horizontal asymptote is the x-axis. So not bad. Right. Point A, which is minus 1 and 4, lies on the graph of the inverse f. Point A, which is minus 1 and 4, lies on the exponential function. Right. Now let's answer the questions. I like the first question, the way it's written, because it's theoretical question, right? So what they told us here is write down the coordinates of A prime, the image of A after the reflection in the line y equals x. Now what happens when you reflect about the line y equals x? So you're reflecting about the line y equals x, this point will go away there in the first quadrant. Right, so not necessarily in the first quadrant, we're just checking. Now y equals x means just switch the points coordinates around. So a1 now becomes, so that's a point on f inverse. So this point will be on the, we're switching this around, so 4n minus 1. 4n minus 1 will actually be a point on the log graph. No, 4n minus 1. This is f inverse minus 1 and 4, which is the exponential. Yes, so this will point here will be on the log graph, which is 4n minus 1. That's where a1 goes away. Right, moving on to the next question. Show that the value of a is quarter. Right, so how are we going to show that the value of a is quarter? Show that the value of a is quarter. Now how are we going to solve that? We're going to start with this log graph here. So y is equal to log x base a at 4n minus 1, because that's a point that lies on the log graph. So this is your x and y, right? So that's minus 1 equals log x. What is x? 4 base a. Right, so a remains a. That's negative 1 equals 4. Right, now if you raise both sides to the power negative 1, you're going to get a is equal to 4 to the power minus 1. Right, and 4 to the power minus 1 is quarter. So we got a as quarter. Right, so I hope you guys understood that. Moving on to the next problem, which is determine the equation of f inverse. Now that is simple because we already have what we already have. We already have the equation of f, right? Remember the equation of f is y equals log x base quarter, right? So f inverse is now x equals log y base quarter. So is that correct? Log y base quarter. Yes, so therefore y is equal to quarter to the power x. Okay, so I've got my inverse function, which is the exponential quarter to the power x. Moving on to the next question. Calculate the length of AB. Calculate the length of AB. Now, how are we going to calculate the length of AB? What is AB? Let's put it here. We want to calculate the length of A to B. I think we're going to use a distance formula here. From A to B. We're going to calculate that distance there. But now in order to calculate the distance we need the coordinates of B, right? And the coordinates of B is on the log graph, right? On the log graph, is this a log graph? Yes, F is a log graph. So remember, we need to make y 0. So F is equal to log x base quarter. Remember to make y 0. So 0 equals log x base quarter, right? At B, right? So we're solving for x. So we're going to say x is equal to quarter to the power 0, which is equal to 1. So what's the coordinates of B? 1, 0, and the coordinates of A is minus 1 and 4. Let's find AB now. AB is using the distance formula. So you're going to say 1 minus minus 1, so 1 plus 1 squared plus, remember I took 1 minus minus 1, so 0 minus 4 squared. So that is 16 plus 4, so square root of 20, or you can say 2 root 5. So what's the distance AB? The distance AB is basically 2 root 5. I hope you guys are understanding. You can write this answer in decimal values as well, or you can use a calculator to get this entire answer. Let's move on. Yeah, what is 2 root 5? 2 root 5, I'm getting an answer of 4,47, right? So I've got an answer which is 4,47. Right, let's continue solving the next problem. 7.5, famous question, right? Where we need to look at the graph and solve this. When is f of x less than 1? Right, so let's copy this, right, and put it here because I need to use the graph to solve this. Right, so f of x, when is f of x equals to negative 1, right? What is f of x? When is f of x less than negative 1? So f of x is my log function, right? So I draw a horizontal line. Remember the reflection of A. It was 4 and negative 1, right? Right. And now we want to know when it is less than negative 1. So we draw a horizontal cut on this line because remember f of x equals to negative 1. What's the f of x? Y value. When the y value is negative 1 but less than that. Right. So less than negative 1. Remember there's negative 1 here is going through this coordinate A1 which we found at the beginning. Now when it is less than 1, when the value of x is greater than 4. After 4, you always, whenever you substitute a value more than 4, you'll always get the log function which is less than negative 1. So you're basically answering this question, log x base quarter is less than negative 1. Now it's difficult to solve this inequality, don't do it like this, right? But if you do want to do it like this, remember we can solve it like this. So that's less than quarter to the power x is less than quarter, should we say less than, if you're switching this around, this should be quarter to the power negative 1 is less than x. That's 4. Yeah. So this is quarter to the power negative, that's 4. So this implies x is greater than 4. You see this is facing that. And that is your answer using graph. So this is solving it using log equation inequality. And using the graph, when is the log graph less than negative 1? After 4. So you can clearly see the answer is 4 here. So x is greater than 4 using graphs. So you got two ways to solve. Or Alright, so far so good. Let's move on to the next question. Alright, financial mathematics. Let's solve. Question 1 of financial mathematics. Let's see how we solve this. So M bought a laptop for 15,800, right? The laptop depreciates at 12% per annum on a reducing balance. After how many years will the value of this laptop be 10,767,27? Now, very important is to use those formulas given in the formula sheet. So accumulated value is equal to, remember this is depreciation on reducing balance, which is diminishing balance method. So P into 1 minus I to the power n. Now she bought a laptop for 15,800, so that's 15,800, which is your principal. 1 minus, what's the interest rate? 12% per annum, so 12 over 100 to the power n. We're solving for n, alright? And what's the accumulated value after a certain number of years? 10,767 comma 26. So now we need to solve for n. Right, so in order to solve for n, we're going to divide both sides by 15,800, and then because we are solving for an exponent, we're going to use logs. Right, so we're going to take 10,767,26 and divided by 15,800 is equal to 1 minus 12% is 0.88, right, to the power n. So how are we going to solve this? We're going to say log of this base 0.88. So n is equal to log of this amount here, 10,767,26 over 15,800 base. The reason why I simplified this is because that's simple to simplify. So it's base 0.88. Let's type it out. Log a base is 0.88, right? And that is 10,767.26 divided by 15,800, and my answer is approximately 3 years. So 3 years, right? So I hope you guys understood that. Moving on to the next question, which is question number 8.2. Calculate the value, right? Calculate the effective yearly interest rate. Calculate the effective yearly interest rate if an investment offers a nominal interest rate of 7.64% per annum compounded half yearly. Now I like to do this problem like this. So remember, we want to calculate the effective rate. So you're going to write x% per annum is equal to 7.64% per annum compounded half yearly. Now very simple. That is just 1 plus x over 100 is equal to the power 1 is equal to 1 plus 7.64. Now there are 2 half years in a year, so divide by 200 to the power 2, right? So because 2 half years in a year, right? So we're going to square this answer minus 1 and multiply by 100 to get it as a percentage, right? So we're going to square this answer. So 1 plus 7.64 over 200 squared to the power 2 minus 1 and multiplied by 100. So I've got an answer of 7.79%. Right, so that's your effective yearly interest rate. So this is the effective interest rate, effective yearly interest rate, as they want. Okay, there's no need to write all this, okay, because they can see what we're calculating. You can just write 7.79% answer. Right, so let's move on to the next question. Right, so Manla is planning to buy a car in 2 years time. He invests 500. So remember, that's his goal, right? So in 2 years time he wants to buy a car. He invests 500 rands in a savings account at the end of each month for 2 years. So how many payments altogether per month for 2 years? So there are 24 payments. 24. N is equal to 24 monthly payments. That's what I see here. Starting in 1 month's time, so that he can use the money to deposit. He can use the money as a deposit for his car. The interest is calculated as 5.8% per annum compounded monthly. Right, so this is like a realistic problem, because usually the interest rates the banks offer is like really low. They don't really offer like 9%, 10%, 12%, which is unrealistic. Anyways, let's solve this problem. We know we need to take a future value. So it's future value, right? Future value is equal to x into, because it's an annuity, is paying every month, 1 plus I to the power n minus 1 divided by the interest rate. Use this formula from the formula sheet, right? Now, what's the value of x? X is 500 rands each month, right? Now there are 24 deposits of 500 rand, and the interest is 5.8 monthly. 1200 to the power 24 minus 1 divided by 5.8 over 1200, because that's my interest rate. Why over 1200? Because it's compounded monthly. Make sure that your payments is in months and your interest rate is also in months. Divided by 5.8 over 1200. Now I'm going to solve this problem and get a future value. How much money will be in his savings account at the end of 2 years? That's what we're checking, after 24 months. Right, so we are going to use a calculator. So fraction 500 into 1 plus 5.8 over, make sure you put double brackets here, 1200 to the power 24. We're going to minus 1, close the bracket there, divided by 5.8 over 1200, and my answer is 12,691.25. 12,691.25 rands. That's how much money will be in his account after 2 years. I hope you guys understood that. Next question. The cost of the car is 368,400. Madler uses all the money from his savings account as a deposit for his new car. Right. He takes out a loan to pay off the balance after paying the deposit. Remember, that's the deposit amount. Interest is calculated at 10%, 10.4% per annum compounded monthly. That's the thing with the banks. They always charge you more interest, but they give you less on the savings. Calculate Mandela's monthly installment if the car must be paid in 6 years. So 6 years is 6 times 12, which is 72 months. In other words, 72 payments. He needs to make n equals 72 payments, or 72 months, right? So that's n. Now we need to know how much of loan he took out. He took the loan amount is the difference. So 368,400 minus, he used this as a deposit, 12,691.25. So we're going to work this answer out. 368,400 minus the previous answer was stored in answer. So I've got 355,708.75. 708.75. That's the loan amount that he's going to take out. Now we're going to use the present value loan formula to calculate the value of x. So present value loan formula is x into, that's a monthly payment we're trying to work out, 1 minus 1 plus I to the power negative n all over I, right? Now what's the loan amount? 355,708.75 is equal to x, that's what we need, into 1 minus 1 plus 10,4 over 1200 to the power negative 72, which we worked out, divided by 10,4 over 1200. Now how do we solve this? Easy to solve this. Take x is equal to, you need to take this amount, multiply by the interest here, and divide it by all of this. So I just copy and paste it for you. Right, so we're going to take that amount and we're going to multiply it by 10,4 over 1200, right, and divide this whole thing by this factor here, which is that part. Right, so now let's type this out into the calculator. There's no need for brackets here because there's two terms, right, and it's already in the denominator. So let's work this amount out. So we're going to take fraction 355 708.75 times 10.4 over 1200 divided by 1 minus 1 plus 10.4 over 1200 close to the power negative 72, right, and the answer we get 6,661 comma 6,661,78, right. That's the amount that he will pay every month. I hope you guys understood that. Moving on to the next question. Calculate the outstanding balance. Calculate the outstanding balance immediately after paying the 56th installment. Now, outstanding balance, there's two ways to do it, right? So you can use the future value method or the present value method. I suggest use the present value method. Outstanding balance immediately after paying the 56th installment. So if he paid the 56 installments, what's the remaining installments? Remaining is 72 minus 56. Now 72 minus 56 is equal to 16. So we have 16 installments left. So outstanding balance at n equals, outstanding balance after n equals 56 installments. N equals 56 installments. We're going to use this formula. It's just that we're going to use the exact same formula here, but we're going to substitute the value of x, right? So I'm just copying it from above, right? So this for right. So we're going to use the same formula, but we're going to change this into 16, right? We're going to change this value into 16. Why? Because there's 16 remaining payments left. And what's the value of x? Remember, x is equal to the value amount, which is 6,661,78. So let's just write it out, okay? This aside. Let's write down the value of x. One minus 1 plus 10.4 over 1200, right? And the value of x was 6,661,78. Right, and we get the outstanding balance amount. So simple, right? Let's work it out on the calculator. Fraction 6,661.78 into 1 minus 1 plus 10.4 over 1200 to the power negative 16. Make sure you close the bracket there. Divided by 10.4 over 1200. Right, so the outstanding balance is 99,128.52. Right, That's the outstanding balance amount. Right, so I hope you guys understood that. Moving on to the next question. Right, now we come to calculus. Right, so we want to apply first principles. Now, how are we going to solve this using first principles? Remember, we got limit f prime x is equal to limit as h approaches 0 of f of x plus h minus f of x all over h. Right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out the 1 over h out, so I don't have to keep on ruling off. Right, so limit as h approaches 0 of 1 over h into what's f of x plus h. You need to substitute x plus h in the function. Right, so 2 into x plus h all squared plus 9 minus what's f of x, 2x squared, please use brackets, plus 9. Right, so I hope you understood that. Now we're going to simplify everything. Limit as h approaches 0 of 1 over h into 2. Open this up, you're going to get x squared plus 2xh plus h squared, squaring a binomial, plus 9 minus 2x squared minus 9. Now you can clearly see that plus 9 minus 9 cancels out. Now next step, limit as h approaches 0 of 1 over h into 2x squared plus 4xh plus 2h squared minus 2x squared. Now what we see is that 2x squared and the 2x cancels out. We can take out h as a common factor. Let's take out h. Limit as h approaches 0 of 1 over h into h into 4x. Remember, we're taking out h as a common factor here and there, so you're going to be left with 1h there, plus 2h. Now the nice thing about this is that the h and the h cancels out, and if you substitute 0 inside h, you can get limit, let's write one more step, into 4x plus 2h, and if you substitute 0 into h, you just get 4x. Right, so my answer is 4x. Now if you use derivative rules, if you differentiate 2x squared plus 9, that is 0. 2 times 2 is 4, 4x. So that's my answer. That's how you check your answer. Right, let's move on to the next one. Let's differentiate the following. Now you have brackets here, right? 9.2.1. Because you have brackets, make sure you open up the brackets. Now you need to know basic rules. You know, negative exponents. You need to know rules of exponent, like x to the power negative n is 1 over x to the power n. You need to know rules of surds. Nth root of x to the power m is inside over outside x to the power m over n. Right, basic rules. Now let's open this up because we need it in power form. X times 2x is 2x squared. X times 1 is x. Now if you find dy dx, please don't use the y prime notation because they're telling you to find dy dx. So write dy dx. 2 times 2 is 4, and subtract 1 from the power, you just get x to the power 1. 1 times 1 is 1, right? And subtract 1 from the power, remember this is x to the power 1. 1 times 1 is 1. Take away 1 from the power, you will get x to the power 0, which is 1. So the answer is just 1, 4x plus 1. Moving on to the next question. Right, this is an interesting one, right? We have a square root, but no problem. Even though we have a square root, remember we need to solve for y always. So we're going to square both sides. So when you square both sides, the square root falls out here. So you just got y plus x equals x plus 3 all squared. What's x plus 3 all squared? X squared plus 6x plus 9. Now take the x over. So you got y equals x squared. 6x minus x is plus 5x plus 9. So now we can find dy dx. Find the derivative, 2x plus 5, because 1 times 5 is 5. Derivative of constant is 0. Right, so I hope you understood that. Moving on to the next question. Right, so now over here we have a notation ddx. Alright, so it's something similar to, you know, the capital DX that we use, right? Capital dx, which is the same thing as saying d dx of 4 plus root 3x over x. Now it's something similar to that. Now we can't remove the d dx until we have this in power form. So let's write this in power form. D dx of 4 over x splitting plus root 3. I'm going to take root x, right, over x. Now it's important, what is root x? Root 3 is just root 3. What is root x? If I say root x, that's basically 1 and 2. So x to the power half, inside over outside. So that's x to the power half. Replace it like this. So now you got d dx. 4 over x is 4x to the power negative 1, right? Plus root 3 remains root 3, right? X to the power half, and that's x to the power 1. When you divide exponents, subtract the powers. So that's x to the power half minus 1, which is negative half. Now we can differentiate. Now when you differentiate, you can drop the d dx. So you got negative 4 times negative 1, negative 4, x to the power negative 2, plus or minus, not sure, let's check. Root 3 times negative half is negative root 3 over 2. Take away 1 from the power, minus half minus 1 is minus 3 over 2. So now we write this in positive exponent. Minus 4 over x squared minus root 3 over 2 x to the power 3 over 2. If you want to be fancy, you can write it in the original form. Minus 4 over x squared minus root 3 over 2 square root of x cubed. Remember, that goes on the inside and square root 2 on the outside. So that's my final answer. Well, you can leave your answer in this form because they didn't say positive exponent form, right? So that should be fine. You should get a mark here. You should get a mark here, right? I hope you guys understood that. Let's move on. These are just extras, right? You don't have to do that. Moving on to the next question. I like the way the derivative is written. See there? The derivative is written in a nice way because you can clearly see the function. The derivative of a function of f, function f at a point P, is given below. Now if you compare this to the formula limit as h approaches 0 of f of x plus h minus f of x all over h, compare the left hand side, right, to the formula, you can clearly see that the function that we are substituting into is a cubic function plus 1 and cubic function plus 1. So basically what we're doing is we're kind of finding like f prime 2 because the x value is 2 there. See, 2 plus h, 2 cubed. So write down the function f of x is equal to x cubed plus 1. So now try substituting x plus h all cubed plus 1, x cubed plus 1, but the value of x is 2. Write down the function f of x is equal to x cubed plus 1. That's my function. They only ask for the function, alright? Now next problem. A tangent is drawn at P. Determine the equation of the tangent to f at point P. Now remember, the important value here is x. So we know we have f prime 2, right? We know that we have f. What does f prime x represents? Right, so we need to ask ourselves that question. Remember, f prime x represents the gradient function. F prime x represents the gradient function. So now if you put values inside the gradient function like f prime 2, right, either way, if you find the derivative here, you're going to get 3x squared, right? But now they already told us that the value is 12. F prime 2 is equal to 12, right? So we know that is the gradient because we substituted 2. So x equals 2 is a point of interest, right? Now we know the gradient is 12. Now if I substitute, where's the point of contact? point of contact is 2 and f of 2. So what is f of 2? F of 2 is substituting 2 inside this equation. F of 2 is equal to 9. So I know my point of contact is 2 and 9, and the gradient is 12. So y minus y1, what's y1? 9 equals m, which is 12, into x minus x1, which is 2. I'm using this formula, y minus y1 equals m into x minus x1. Determine the equation of the tangent to f at point P. So remember, this is point P is a point of contact. Right, so y is now equal to, open this up, getting 12x minus 24 and add 9. Right, so I've got y equals 12x minus 15. I hope you guys are understanding. Right? Let's move on to the next question. Question 10. So that's the equation of the tangent line, right? Question number 10. Right, so we have a cubic function. Let's see what information is given, alright? We need to analyze this function first and then see what they want. Right, so I have this function, I've got the information there. Let's read the information. The diagram below shows the graph of f of x. Now, it's nice because they already gave us the graph of f of x, right? In this form, you only need to solve for 2 values. It's not the full form, right? The x coordinates of L and M are 1 and 2 respectively. So L is 1, right? And M is 2. The average gradient of f between L and M is 5,5. The average gradient of f between L and M is 5,5. Now what's the average gradient formula? Average gradient is f of b minus, no, actually, let's see, average gradient is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Like a gradient formula, right? y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So you can also switch this around into f of, don't call it a and b because it's going to conflict with this, call it c and d here. So f of d minus f of c divided by d minus c. So you can also use this for average gradient. Right, so anyways, this is a very, very important information, is 5,5. The equation of the tangent to the curve of f at x is equal to 6. Now we don't even know where the turning point is, right? At x is equal to 6 is minus 18x plus c, right? So I think it's somewhere around here, because they said at x is equal to 6, assuming that x equals 6 is somewhere around here, right? Right, is minus 18. Now at x equals to 6, try to understand what they said here. Minus 18 is important point. So we know that f prime x is a gradient function, right? Gradient function. So now if I find the derivative, so m is equal to f prime 6. M is equal to f prime 6, and f prime 6 is going to give me negative 18. That's what I know from so far from this information. And we also know that, remember, d and c over here is 2 minus 1. So this is 2 minus 1, and this is basically f of 2 minus f of 1, and that answer is equal to 5,5. That's what we know from that information. Right, so perfect. Right, so nice analysis there using all this information. Now we can start answering the question. Show that a equals minus half and b equals 3. Show that a equals minus half and b is equal to 3. A is equal to minus half and b is equal to 3. Okay. Let's see. So we need two equations with two unknowns. A equals minus half and B is equal to 3. So I think we have to use the average gradient somewhere, and we have to go and use the f of x somewhere. Point of contact, we got y equals, that's 18. Right, so let's find f prime x first. Okay, from the average gradient, what we can say is that information, we know that f of 2 minus f of 1 divided by 2 minus 1 is equal to 5, 5. Right, now let's rewrite this. This is f of 2 minus f of 1 is equal to 5, 5. Now what is f of x? F of x is ax cubed plus bx squared plus bx squared. So what's f of 2? F of 2, I'm trying to solve this, the first information that was given. F of 2 is 2 cubed is 8, 8a, and plus 4b, right? And what's f of 1? F of 1 is 1 cubed is 1, so a plus b, right? So what we're doing, we're subtracting these two. So if we subtract these two, we're going to get 7a, 4b minus b is 3b. So what I have 7a, the information I have is 7a plus 3b is equal to 5, 5. So I set up equation 1 already. Now equation 2 is coming from this concept here, f prime x. So let's find f prime x, and then we have to solve simultaneously, I think. Yeah, you should be able to solve simultaneously. Now what's f prime x? F prime x is equal to 3ax squared plus 2bx plus 2bx. Now we're going to find f prime 6, because the gradient at 6 is negative 18, right? So we're going to substitute, and that answer is equal to negative 18. 6 squared is 36, and 36 times 3, 36 times 3, I'm getting 108a. 2 times 6 is 12, plus 12b is equal to negative 18. Now I want to simplify this, right? So I think I can divide it by 12 throughout. So can't divide by 12. Let's try to divide it by 4. So I can get 3b here, and I've got 3b there. No, I can't. Can I divide by 4? Yeah, it's fine if you get this as decimal value, because you got decimal value there. Let's take 108 and divide it by 4. I'm getting 27 plus 3b. 18 divided by 4, I'm getting 9 over 2, so that's 4, 5. So negative 4, 5. Now I take equation 2 and minus equation 1. So, or take equation 1 and then minus equation 2. Take equation 1 and minus equation 2. So I'm taking equation 1 and minus equation 2. Equation 1 is here, 7a plus 3b is equal to 5, 5. Right, so I'm going to minus these two here. 27a minus a is 20a. 3b minus 3b cancels out. Minus 4.5 minus 5.5, so we just get minus 10. Therefore a is equal to negative half. Right, a is equal to negative half. How are we going to solve for b? B is equal to, take equation 1. So to solve for b, you're going to take 5, 5 minus 7 times half, 7 times negative half, and divided by 3. And divided by 3. So the value for b is 5.5 minus 7 times negative 0.5, right? 9, then divided by 3. And I'm getting the value for b, which is 3. So therefore a equals negative half, and the value for b, which is equal to 3. Yes, we proved it. Now we can use a and b inside. to solve for the rest. Right, so the equation f of x, which is negative half x cubed plus 3x squared, is given. Right, so now they gave you in this, well, we already found it in the previous problem. Right, determine the coordinates of n, the turning point of f. Where's n? N is there. We only want that one because we know one of the coordinate is 0, 0. So we want that one there, n higher up. So we want x value positive. So we're going to find f prime x, which is minus half times 3 is minus 3 over 2 x squared. 3 times 2 is 6 plus 6x is equal to 0. Right. We're going to divide this entire equation by negative 3 over 2 because I want to put it in time. Okay, let's multiply the entire equation by 2. So we got minus 3x squared plus 12x equals 0. Okay, let's just take out minus 3x as a common factor. So we're left with x. 12 divided by minus 3 is minus 4, right, is equal to 0. So x is equal to 0, that's not applicable, we don't want that. Or x is equal to 4. That's what we want. If x is equal to 4, what's the y value? Substitute into the original. So y is equal to f of 4, which is equal to negative half into 4 cubed plus 3 times 4 squared. 4 cubed is 64, that's negative 32. 16 times 3, that's 48. And 48 minus 32 should get is 16. So what's the coordinates of n? Therefore n is equal to 4 and 16. I hope you guys are understanding. Let's check if this answer is correct. So we got negative 1 mod 1, negative 1 over 2 into 4 cubed to the power 3 plus 3 into 4 squared. Yeah, I've got 16. So the coordinates of n is 4 and 16. Right. Perfect. Let's move on to the next question. The graph of f is concave up 4. Now when is the graph of f concave up? Just find double derivative and make it less than 0. So concave up is 10.3, right? Let's see. When is the graph concave up? Right, there's many ways of doing this problem where you can take the x values and solve it like this. See, so the easiest way is, we know this value is 0 and 4. We know this value is 0 and 4, right? So halfway between here will be concave up and down. So it's concave up here. So we're going to say inflection point is 0 plus 4 divided by 2. So that's at 2. Inflection point is at 2. And it's concave up when? Less than 2. Right? So this implies x is less than 2. So you wanted to find the value of k, right? So k is equal to 2. This implies k is equal to 2. Or another way to solve this problem, we're going to find double derivative. F double prime x and make it less than, we want concave up, so it should be greater than 0. F double prime x is greater than 0. Okay, now what's f double prime x? Remember, f prime x was equal to this. Right, so we're going to start with f prime x. Let's put f prime x here. Let's put it in the side. Right, so this is the second method. We know f prime x is equal to minus, so now we're going to find double prime x. So minus 3, 2 times minus 3 over 2 is minus 3. X plus 6 is greater than 0. Solve this inequality, you get the answer. Minus 3x is greater than negative 6. Divide both sides by negative 3. X is less than 2. So that's the answer for k. K is equal to 2. Right, so you have another method to solve. I hope you guys are understanding. Right, so when you're finding concave up is double derivative greater than 0, finding concave down double derivative less than 0, and finding inflection point is double derivative equal to 0. But now if you have two turning points, you can take the midpoint x value for the inflection point and take the inflection point x value, substitute into the original to get the y value. Please don't take the midpoint of the y values to get a y value there, which is incorrect. Moving on to the next problem, which is question 11, maximization. Right, so let's try to make sense of this problem. Right, so we're going to do both here. Alright, let's see. The length of the box is 1.5 times its breadth. So everything is given here, right? There's it here. A matchbox consists of an outer cover open at both ends, right? That's the outer cover here, into which slides a rectangular box without a top. There's it here. Right. The length of the box is 1.5 times its breadth. So I think that information is given, right? The thickness of the material is negligible, alright, so leave that out. The volume of the box is 25. The volume of the box is 25. So the amount that you can fit into this box is 25. Write down the height of the box in terms of x. So now 11.1, they told us that the volume, that's a restriction, alright, so the volume is equal to length times width times the height, which is equal to 25, right? What's the length? The length is 1.5 x. What's the width? X. And what's the height? That's what we need to solve. So what do we have here? We got 1.5 x squared times height is equal to 25. What's 25 divided by 1.5? Let's work that out. 25 divided by 1.5. I'm getting 50 over 3. 50 over 3. 50 over 3, and then we need to divide it by x squared. So we're getting 50 over 3. 25, that's x squared h. So h is now equal to 50 over 3 x squared. Taking the x squared, dividing both sides by x squared. Right, so that's the height. Next one. Show that the amount of material used for the box is given by. The amount of material used for the box is given by. How are you going to show the amount of material used for the box? So we can see over here we got, look at this, we need to work out the total surface area. So we've got this side times 2, so we got this height and 1.5x times 2, and they got like another 2 there, right? So 4 of those. And how many? Okay, we also have a side face here, but over here we don't have a side face, the x and the h. So we got 2 of those, right? And how many faces you got here? 1, 2. So 2 here and 3 there. Right, so let's see. So total surface area, right, so we're going to show that that's the answer, right? So total surface area is equal to, so total surface area is now equal to 1.5x times 1.5x times h, that's the area of the side face here, right, times 4, because you got 1.5 here, 1.5 there, 1.5 there, so 1.5x times 4. 1,5x times h times 4 plus, we said we got two sides here, x times h times 2 plus x times h, right, times 2. Let's not put a times there, looks like an x, times 4 times 2, and we got three faces here, which is x times 1 comma 5 times 3 plus x times 1.5x times 3, 1 comma 5, right? Let's see, let's put this in brackets, right? X times 1.5 times 3. Now let's multiply everything out. So 1 comma 5 times 4 is 6xh plus 2xh plus 3 times 1.5 is 4 comma 5 x squared, right? Now what is h? H is 50 over 3 x squared. So you got 6x into 50 over 3 x squared plus 2x into 50 over 3 x squared. Why are we doing this? This is 8x, right? I think we made a mistake somewhere. That's 6xh. So 1.5 times x times h. That's 2xh. How are we ending up with three terms here? But we over here we only have two terms. 50 over 1 comma 5x. So the length of the box is 1.5 times its breadth. I want to see this side. That's a height. That's a height. We are always multiplying by the height. X times height times 2, x times 1.5, x times 3. That's 4 comma 5 x squared. This is 8x here, guys. This is 8x. Oh, okay, they didn't add up these. See here. That's 100 over x, and they put that 50 over 1 comma 5x. Okay, it's fine. We'll figure that out. Right, so we got 6x times h. What is h? Those are like terms, guys. 6x times h. H is 50 over 3. I think I should say, what is that? 50 over 3. Let's just simplify, right? So we got 50 over 3 x squared. So I'm right, plus 2x into 50 over 3 x squared plus 4 comma 5 x squared. So we got 4 comma 5 x squared, which is correct. Now 6 and the 3 cancels out 2 times, so we've got, and the x cancels out, so we got 100 over x. So that's the first term, plus, let me put this 4 comma 5 x squared inside, right? And let's take this and put it at the end. So 2 and the 3. So 2 and 3, I can combine that. I can take this 2 right down, and x cancels out. So I got 50 over 1 comma 5 x squared. So I took this 2 and I divided by the 3 here. It's like, how can I put it? I'm multiplying by half on the numerator and in the denominator. So 50 over 1.5 x squared. So I hope you, not x squared, x. Right, guys. Right, so moving on to the next question. I hope you understood that. Hence, determine the breadth of the box such that the material used is minimum. So we want to minimize, right? So we want to minimize. And what's the breadth? The breadth is just the value of x. Remember, the breadth is just x. Is 1.5 times its breadth. So they made the breadth x. So breadth is equal to x. Right, so breadth is equal to x. Now we want to minimize this, so we're going to say area is equal to 100 over x is 100 x to the power negative 1 plus 4 comma 5 x squared plus what is 50 divided by 1.5? I'm just going to leave it like this, 50 over 1 comma 5 x to the power negative 1. Right, now let's find a prime. Remember, we got like terms here, so let's combine these like terms. I don't know why we're doing that. Right, so we got 4 comma 5 x squared, right, plus I'm taking out x to the power minus 1 here, and I'm going to combine 100 plus 50 over 1.5. So what's 100 plus 50 over 1.5? So I'm getting 400 over 3, right? Now we find the derivative and make it equal to 0. So obviously this will be a minimum because we have, no, we can't really say we have a parabola there. Alright, so let's differentiate this and see what we get. 4 comma 5 times 2 is 9x, plus minus 1 times 400 over 3 is minus 400 over 3, minus 400 over 3, x to the power minus 2, right? X to the power minus 2, and that's equal to 0. Now what I'm going to do here is multiply it by 3. Actually multiply it by 3x squared. So that will be nice if you multiply by 3x squared. Why are we multiplying by 3x squared? So the denominator 3 cancels out here, and that x to the power minus 2 also cancels out with x squared. Right, so 9 times 3 is 27, x times x squared is x cubed, minus 400 is equal to 0, right? Because 3 and 3 cancels out, x to the power minus 2, x to the power 2, add the powers, you get x to the power 0, which is 1. So x cubed is equal to 400 over 27, right? And we're going to take a cube root here. So this implies x is equal to cube root of 400 over 27. Well, I know what's the cube root of 27, which is 3, and the cube root of 400, let's see, cube root, shift cube root of 400 is 7,36. Actually, just take the cube root of the whole thing and simplify over 27. So I'm getting an answer of 2,456, 2,46, 2,46. So the answer is 2,46. What is that? 2,46 what? Centimeters. Yeah, 2,46 centimeters. Right, so I hope you understood that, guys. Right, 2,46. Moving on to the next question, which is question number 12. Probability question, right? Let's put these down here. And question 1 is to find the values of A, B, C, D, and E. Right? Now, in order to find that, we need to read all the information. Now, let's read the information. Remember, question 1 is to find A, B, C, D, E. A, B, C, D, and E. Right, so let's see. A group of 40 people was asked which bus company they like to travel by, Alto, Greybond, or Translucky bus company. So we know there are 40 people, so n is equal to 40, total number, right, of people is 40. 3 people like traveling by all 3 bus companies, so we know F is equal to 3. Right, so F is 3 because all 3 so we filled in all 3 intersections, right? 7 people like to travel by Translucky and Alto. T and Alto, Translucky and Alto, 7. So the value of A is 4, right? So that's done. Translucky and Alto, so that's the intersection between these 2 circles. 3 plus 4 is 7, right? So that's done. 3 people did not like using any of the bus companies, so that's going to be on G. So 3 is going to be outside, right? Perfect. Alright, so that leaves us with yeah, that leaves us with this thing. The probability of randomly selecting a person liking to travel by Greybond and Alto is 2 out of 5, gray bound and alto. So we got gray bound and alto, gray bound and alto, so we can get a value for B here. B plus 3. We're going to get B plus 3, alright, out of 40. So remember the probability is, so what we can write down here so far is what we have is A is equal to 4, right? A is equal to 4. To find B, gray bound and alto, we can say B plus 3 out of 40 is equal to what? Gray bound and alto is 2 out of 5, right? Is 2 out of 5 is equal to 2 out of 5. So what we can do is we can cross multiply and solve this, right? So 2 times 40 is 80, right? 5 into B plus 3, right? So 80 divided by 5 is 16. 80 divided by 5 is 16. B plus 3. This implies B is now equal to 13. So we got the value for B. So if you see 16 out of, if you check 16 out of 40, what is 16 out of 40? Is that 2/5? 16 divided by 40, yes, that's 2/5. So that answers that one. The probability of randomly selecting a person liking to travel by gray bound and translucky is 1/5. Gray bound and translucky. Gray bound and translucky is what? Is 1/5. So basically we need to say 3 plus C. 3 plus C is equal to 3 plus C out of 40 is 1/5. So we need to say 3 plus C out of 40 is equal to 1/5. So cross multiply again. So 5 into 3 plus C is equal to 40. 40 divided by 5 is 8. So this implies C is now equal to 5. Right, so the value for C is 5. Okay, so everything is making sense so far. So 8 out of 40 is 1/5. So what do we have? We got A, B, C. Next one, the probability of a randomly selected person liking to travel by translucky only is 1 out of 10. Translucky only. So that's going to give us D. Only translucky. So that's only translucky, which is D. So how are we going to solve for D? We're going to say D out of 40 is equal to 1 out of 10. D out of 40 is equal to 1 out of 10. Translucky only. So D is equal to 4, right? If you cross multiply, you're going to get 10D is equal to 40. So therefore D is now equal to 4. Remember, I solve for D here, right? So D is equal to 4. Let's put C here, right? So far I've got A, B, C, D. Now let me put the value for D inside, because we need to solve for one more. D is 4. D is equal to 4. Next one, the probability of a randomly selected person liking to travel by alto is 13 out of 20. So that's going to help us calculate E. To travel by alto, alto is this whole thing over here. So you're going to say E plus 13 plus 3 plus 4 divided by 40 is equal to 13 out of 20. Right, so don't cross multiply. You can see how you're going from 40 to 20. You're multiplying by 2. So how are you going to go from there to there? Actually dividing by 2. So go reverse order. Right, so see, from here to there you're multiplying by 2. So from here to there you need to multiply by 2. Otherwise just cross multiply, man. Alright, let's just cross multiply. Oh no, got a better idea. let's actually use that information. Let's make it out of 40. Make 13 out of 20 out of 40. All right. So that's going to be 26 out of 40. Multiply by 2. Multiply by 2. So and then we can drop the LCD. So this is 26 out of 40. So now we can take this out, drop the LCD. So we got E plus, what's 13, 3 and 4, that's 20. E plus 20 is equal to 26. So alto is equal to 6. Right, so we've got everything. Alto is 6. So most of the information is given. Now obviously there's 2. Now add up everything and see if you get 40. Let's add up everything. So we know alto, the entire circle is 26. 6 plus 13 plus 7, that's 26. 26 plus 9, that's 26 plus 5 and 4 is 9. So you got 26 plus 9, which is 35, plus 3 plus 2 is 40. So now we've got this. We got everything inside here. Perfect, guys. Nice questions. Now we have a question here. Question is, how many people like to travel by Greybound bus company? Greybound. How many people like to travel by Greybound bus company? How many people? 2 plus 13 plus 3 plus 5. So 13 plus 2 is 15, 20, 23. 2 plus 13 is 15, plus 5 is 20, 23. So the answer is just 23. Right, so 23 people. Just write down 23. You should get full marks. Next question. Calculate the probability of a randomly selected person liking to travel by only one bus company. Only one, right? So the probability is equal to, calculate the probability of a randomly selected person liking to travel by only one bus company. So only one bus company will be these ones. Either travel by Alto only, or only Greybound, or only Translucky. So 6 plus 2 plus 4. 6 plus 2 plus 4. 6 plus 2 plus 4 divided by the total, which was 40. So we're getting 12 out of 40. Is that right? Only Alto, or only Greybound, or only Translucky. So we have 3 separate regions to add. And 12 out of 40, 12 divided by 40 is 3 out of 10. Right, so I hope you guys understood that. And now coming to the final question, which is question number 13, counting principles. Let's do the first 2 questions, because usually the first question is like, you know, factorials, and it's easier to solve. Question 13. Right, so Nonchile, who is a grade 12 learner, has 8 textbooks from 8 different subjects. So all of them are different, right? So 8 textbooks. So we know n is equal to 8. She wants to arrange in a line on a shelf. So in how many ways can the textbooks be arranged? So 8 factorial, whatever the answer is. 8 shift factorial, 40,320. Right. Next one. In how many ways can the textbooks be arranged if the mathematics textbooks and the accounting textbook must be on each end of the shelf? So mathematics is there, and mathematics textbook and the accounting textbook must be on each end of the shelf. So mathematics is there, so we got one option here, right? And accounting is here, so we got another option there. Or you can switch them around, or you can say accounting here and mathematics there, so you kind of need to multiply by. So, and the other 6 is just 6 factorial, because the other 6 is just grouped together, right? 1 2 3 4 5 6, so that's just 6 factorial here. So what you got, 1 times 6 factorial times 1 times 2. Why two ways? Because you can put accounting here or mathematics here, so that's why you got two options. So I've just got an answer, 6 factorial times 2. What is 6 factorial? 6 shift factorial times 2, 1440 ways. They didn't ask for a probability in how many ways. Yeah, so 1440. Now to the last and final question, question 13.2, 13.3. Right, and that ends our paper. Right, so let's see. Right, so if the mathematics textbook and the accounting textbooks must be on each end of the shelf, so something like this, that's a total number, right? What is the probability that the history textbook and the tourism textbook are not next to each other? Right, so we have this thing here, what is the probability, and we also want the probability if the mathematics and accounting textbook must be on each end of the shelf. Alright, so let's see now. Let's work out if they are together, the probability of them being together. If together, and then we're going to minus it from the total. If they are together, then we got mathematics textbook and history and tourism. So history and tourism are together, right? And we got 1 2 3 4 5. Because we grouped them up, we just left with 4 others, and 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Remember, that's mathematics, and that's accounting, right? That's at the end, so that's 1 times that times 1 at the end, so we don't have an option, or mathematics and account, so times 2. Probability of them, number of ways of them being together. So in how many ways can they be together? It's going to be, remember, there's an O option here, or accounting here, and mathematics there. Right, so this is 2 factorial, and remember these can move into positions. So 2 factorial for this one, 2 factorial times, count this as an entity, so that's 1 2 3 4 5 times 5 factorial, right? Because they can occupy other positions being together. Now 2 factorial times 5 factorial, and then remember, times 1 times 1 times further 2, because accounting can be there and mathematics can be there, so times 2 further 2. So I've got 2 factorial, so I've got 2 factorial is just 2 times 5 factorial, 5 shift factorial. Right, so I've got an answer 480 ways. So 480 ways they are together. Therefore, the probability that they are not together is actually equal to 1440 minus 480 divided by 1440. Right? Why 1440? Because we have this condition given. If the mathematics textbook and the accounting textbook must be on each end of the shelf, what is the probability that so basically divided by 1440, and if we work this out on our calculator, if we work it out on the calculator, we should get what happened, 1440 you should get an answer of 2/3. Right, so I hope you guys understand. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I've got other videos as well, mathematics paper 1, paper 2, final exams, IEB papers. Don't forget to watch that as well. I hope you enjoyed the video, and all the best, guys.